When it comes to my own journey of growth and healing, it's largely been me figuring things out on my own, but also I've been very much supported by others and their knowledge. And I couldn't have done it without those two elements. And when it comes to the kind of knowledge that's been most helpful for me, it is that which is backed up by the person's experience. These are people that have been truly transforming themselves in profound ways for years. So in this video, I'm going to talk about why I think that experiential knowledge is so often better than expert knowledge when it comes to areas like psychological and emotional healing and self-awareness. Just a quick disclaimer here. This video is for educational purposes only. It is not professional advice of any kind. It is not mental health advice, and I am not a mental health professional. Now, experiential knowledge can be transmitted in different ways. One way, which is very common nowadays, is over the internet. People can share their own ideas based on their own experiences in videos, in blog form, etc. Another is a practitioner of some kind whose practice is largely rooted in their own experience. Now, the mental health system is largely based around expert knowledge. It's based around the idea that you need this expert who has extensive training and extensive credentials in order to heal psychologically and basically become more self-aware. And the message, generally speaking, in our society is that when it comes to mental health, expert knowledge is really what counts, and anything outside of that should be viewed with tremendous skepticism. And sure, we can have a little bit of experiential knowledge as long as it is basically totally co-opted by the mental health system and its ideology. That being said, a mental health professional's work could be rooted in their own experience, and I've seen that, and it's been pretty amazing. I don't think it's very common at all, because I think it's nearly impossible to work within the system and operate meaningfully that way. One of the reasons why I much prefer experiential knowledge over expert knowledge when it comes to mental health is that experiential knowledge has a very different power dynamic. It invites you to consider whether the particular ideas actually resonate with you, whether they are helpful for you based on your own experience. You get to decide whether they're relevant or not. The power is very much in your hands, and the person imparting the experiential knowledge only has power to the degree that you give it to them, to the degree that you decide that what they have to offer is something that you actually want. You get to actually have meaningful authority over your experience there. And it's actually real, right? It's not just like a mental health professional pretending to operate this way. It's actually real. Expert authority in mental health has a very, very different power dynamic. Power is much more in the hands of the expert, in the hands of the mental health professional. The expert is the one with the authority over you. And if you don't like it, then you'll often be characterized as resistant in some way, or you'll be pathologized in some fashion. And for me at least, having the power in my hands is absolutely essential when it comes to psychological healing and emotional growth. Because the kind of power imbalances you get with the sort of expert authority that we have in the mental health system are themselves a source of stress and suffering. And so the whole thing just doesn't make any sense. This is my experience anyway. Another factor as to why I think experiential knowledge is often much better than expert knowledge when it comes to mental health has to do with the nature of this area. Topics like emotional and psychological healing, self-awareness, relationships, life transitions, all of the things that we put under this category of mental health are not primarily technical or scientific in nature, at least not for the most part. And yet the premise of the mental health system is that these are areas that are primarily scientific and technical in nature, and therefore We can just train people sufficiently, and then they'll be qualified to help you with that. But I think the nature of these areas is very, very different. I think they're better characterized as being perhaps philosophical in nature, maybe spiritual in nature, you could say. Maybe they're more creative in some sense. And in my experience, the mental health system basically takes all of these aspects out of this area. And that basically makes it a whole lot less useful and a whole lot less valuable. At least that has been my experience. And of course, they will sometimes try to add some of that back in. But I think that's kind of like, I think a good analogy for it is kind of like the way processed cereal works nowadays, where like with your, like with your basic breakfast cereal, it's like we take all the nutrients out of it and then we try to like add some vitamins back in. It's like not really the real thing. And actually, the way mental health treatment works might actually be a lot worse than that, where like we make an attempt at making it a bit more, creative and authentic and spiritual or whatever, but it really doesn't work. And if the nature of this area is more philosophical and spiritual and creative, then it's not a matter of just getting the right expert knowledge and having it kind of come down to us in this top-down way. It's a matter of what ideas and approaches we actually like. It's a matter of what ideas and approaches seem to make sense for us for now, not unlike how certain art does or doesn't appeal to us. And that is largely how my journey has unfolded. It's like over time, I've found more and more of what seems to resonate with the truth of my life. And over time, something pretty profound and massive starts to kind of consolidate. And another thing related to the power dynamic that I've begun to touch on is that experiential knowledge encourages us to be the experts of our own lives, whereas expert knowledge encourages dependence. But to me, psychological healing and empowerment are one and the same. So being more and more the authority over my own life and owning more and more of my real perspective, and being more like emotionally and psychologically autonomous, that is so central to healing. And so if I'm in a system or in a paradigm that basically doesn't work according to that logic, then I'm not going to be able to heal within that system. And so that's why I've kind of always felt like the mental health system sort of totally misunderstands the nature of healing. That's my opinion. And so if I'm going to seek out help of some kind, even if it's just like peer support or mutual aid or something like that, I want the person's actual experience to be central. I want them to have been focused on profoundly transforming themselves for a long time. For me, that's an absolute prerequisite. Not just a therapist that has been required to do their own therapy, someone where their own experience is at the center of their authority, not their expertise that they get from a professional system. This is important because, in my opinion, it's basically the only way that someone can develop the depth and awareness to be able to properly assist you in your own process, right? In order to be able to properly listen to you and understand you and really support you in what you're going through. The hard part is that very often experiential knowledge and expert knowledge directly contradict one another. And so it's really difficult when society is on the side of the expert knowledge, but the truth and the prospect of our own healing are on the side of experiential knowledge. Experiential knowledge is also very important because many of us were profoundly shaped by expert knowledge when we were younger, typically without our consent. So this is especially relevant if we were sent to therapy when we were kids or experienced, more formal mental health treatment, or if we were subjected to social emotional learning or something like that. Because an expert authority is basically colonizing our inner world and is programming us according to institutional logic. And so our lives have been so profoundly invaded by expert authority that we never really got a chance to figure out who we are. And so if we went through that, The path is really about reclaiming ourselves and reclaiming our power in all ways, and really reclaiming our autonomy when it comes to our bodies, our minds, our emotions, our behavior, our choices. So this is my take on why I think that experiential knowledge is often better than expert knowledge when it comes to mental health. I really hope that you have enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching it all the way to the end. If there's anything else that you'd like me to make a video on, just let me know in the comments. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Please also share this video with anybody who you think might enjoy it. Thank you again, and I look forward to having you next time.